This isn't the Star Wars that we're used to. It's the spin-off Star Wars film Rogue One, where a ragtag team of rebels band together to infiltrate an Imperial base, steal the plans for the Death Star, and then they all die. Oh yeah, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Rogue One yet, but it came out in 2016, so I think we're fine. Rogue One is one of the better Star Wars films Disney has released since their acquisition of Lucasfilm in 2012, but it seems to be mostly overlooked whenever people talk about Star Wars. Whether it's because it's a spin-off, because of its troubled production, or because of actual issues with the film itself, people seem to have forgotten about Rogue One. To understand exactly why this is the case, let's dive into how the idea for Rogue One first came about. John Knoll, known for his work on the Star Wars prequels and the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, as well as for being co-creator of Photoshop, was the one who first pitched the story for Rogue One, with a story centered on a single line from the opening crawl in the original Star Wars film. During the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star. His original pitch was titled Destroyer of Worlds, and it featured a mostly militaristic, self-contained story. Knoll pitched a considerably low budget for the film, even suggesting that they recycle sets from The Force Awakens. There were several changes made from Knoll's pitch to the final cut we received, including Saw Gerrera with his somewhat haphazardly constructed Darth Vader-esque suit, who was not in the original pitch, as well as director Krennic, who was originally supposed to be scarred terribly on the face, but instead we got the beautiful face of Ben Mendelsohn. The only characters from the original group that stayed the same were Jyn Erso and K2SO, both of whom only went through minor character changes.
Are you talking about me?
Gareth Edwards was brought on as director, known for his previous work on the indie film Monsters and 2014's Godzilla. Later in 2016 though, Tony Gilroy was brought on for a seemingly large amount of reshoots. Gilroy even went so far as to say that the film was a mess before he came on. There are quite a few things from the film's trailers that didn't make the cut, and it seems like these reshoots and other potential production issues may have been the culprit. Whether or not these changes were for the better, we may never know. I do think, however, that these changes late in the game for Rogue One's release could be a factor in why the film tends to be forgotten or overlooked. Since the directors were likely focusing on the underlying themes of the film and whether the film was too dark or too light, they seem to have missed the mark in three critical areas. First of all, we're given a passive protagonist in Jyn Erso. Rather than causing things to happen, moving the plot forward, things happen to her. Jyn first witnesses her mother's murder, then she's recruited into Saw Gerrera's forces, then she's imprisoned, then she's rescued from prison, then she's basically forced to go on this adventure to get the Death Star plans. None of this happened because of choices she made to move the plot forward. So, rather than giving us a motivational, sympathetic main character, we got a somewhat one-dimensional, passive protagonist. It's this kind of passivity that can make characters a bit more forgettable and is likely a contributing factor as to why Rogue One tends to be forgotten about. The next way that Rogue One's creators missed the mark lies in the common phrase, show, don't tell. Take the first scene we get to see Felicity Jones as the character of Jyn. It's never shown to us who she has become since her mother's death or how she was imprisoned. We're just told a list of what she's done in the past, not shown.
Possession of unsanctioned weapons, forgery of imperial documents, aggravated assault, escape from custody, resisting arrest.
And we get no reaction from her whatsoever when these crimes are listed. Later, we're only told about her history with Saw Gerrera, and we never get to actually see how this time impacted her fundamentally. Since the film tells us all the things we should know about these characters rather than showing us, it leaves much of the film's dialogue feeling pretty dry and without purpose, yet again making the film a little bit less memorable. Lastly, and most importantly, Rogue One fails to build character investment. By the end of the film, we should be fully invested in these characters' stories and in their futures, but it's hard to feel bad for the characters when they all die in the end because we aren't fully invested in them yet. It makes the sacrifice these characters made seem a lot less significant and more like the single line from the original opening crawl, which barely even mentions them. I think this lack of character investment stems from the fact that most of their actions in the first half of the film have little to no consequences. For instance, when the pilot is subjected to torture from the weird alien thing, his mind is basically broken. Later in the film though, he snaps out of it and is able to continue helping the rebellion. There are many things like this in the first half of the movie where actions don't really have consequences. This lack of consequences and audience investment in the main characters has caused many people to basically forget about the entire first half of Rogue One. In the second half of the movie, however, the main characters seem to have a much better purpose and actually have to face the consequences of their actions. The film really does regain momentum during the second half and shows us how a Star Wars spin-off can achieve some really great results. One of my favorite things about the film is that we finally get to see a Star Wars story that's not focused on the Skywalker family. We get to see more ordinary people doing simply extraordinary things. There's no Jedi, no love story, and no Skywalkers. Also, there's no opening crawl. Instead, we open with Michael Giacchino's spectacular score, which he wrote in a record-breaking time of just 4 weeks. We also got some absolutely stunning cinematography from Greg Fraser, where he's able to highlight the war aspect of Star Wars in both dark and gritty shots, as well as in light and beautiful shots. We get to see the gray area in a galaxy where things always seem to be black or white, especially in the character of Cassian Andor, who is set to get his own series on Disney Plus later this year. Lastly, I just want to mention a couple of things that I love about this movie. First things first, K2SO is hilarious, and I hope we get to see more of him in Andor.
Jin, I'll be there for you. Cassian said I had to.
Next up, Darth Vader's castle on Mustafar. Way cooler than I could have ever imagined.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
Next, Krennic and his Death Troopers. I love Ben Mendelsohn's take on Krennic's character, and the Death Troopers look absolutely terrifying, and it's amazing. Lastly, the hallway scene. Mwah! Chef's kiss. Utter perfection. Darth Vader should always be seen like this. He should be known as the most terrifying person in the galaxy, and this scene could not have been done better, not even when it's done in Lego. Although Rogue One has some pretty serious flaws that cause many people to overlook the movie when they think about Star Wars, I'd say the good things the film brings to the table certainly outweigh the bad. Ultimately though, it's up to you to decide whether Rogue One is worth remembering and whether the film's pros outweigh the cons.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.
Anyways, that's going to be all for today. If you like what you saw, check out the video on your screen for some different content, or drop a comment below on something else you'd like to see. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, as it truly does help me out, and thanks for watching Rocket Riley.